Good evening. It's 6 o'clock on Tuesday, March 10th, 2026, and I'm called this Lacey City Council work session to order. We have Council Member Cox, who is with us online, but the rest of the council is here present. I also want to acknowledge that we, the City of Lacey, are on the ancestral land of the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek, including the Nisqually Indian Tribe and the Squaxin Indian Tribe. With that, can I get a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Then that motion unanimously carries. We approved our agenda for this evening. First up on our approved agenda is public comment. We have one person who's pre-registered for public comment, Karen Mesmer. Can we please bring her on? And Karen, you'll have 3 minutes once we get you situated. There you go.
Good, thank you. Hello. My name is Karen Mesmer. I host the Thurston Climate Action Team Active Transportation Group. We advocate for safe and convenient walking and cycling conditions that will reduce our climate impacts and improve community health. Walking is the original form of transportation. Even when we drive, we walk to and from our car. It's a way to get to transit. About 30% of our population does not drive for a variety of reasons. On your agenda this evening, you will be discussing the renewal of the Transportation Benefit District Taxing Authority. You've made good progress on sidewalk repairs with revenues from the TBD. The current project to remove and replace tree damage to sidewalks is a good example that will make many places safer for walking because there will be so many fewer tripping hazards, for example, and I really want to thank you for that. I urge you to consider doing even more to support walking with the renewal of the TBD. Your pedestrian bicycle plan was developed several years ago with major themes that you heard from the public, including a need for more connectivity to destinations and to transit. These gaps in the existing walking network can really discourage and sometimes prevent people from walking and making trips on foot. So many of the comments also talked about lack of connections and access to popular destinations such as schools, businesses, parks, and within neighborhoods. So there's some challenges in Lacey for getting around on foot. Sometimes the solution is simply a small connection that increases access to these destinations. You also heard during that plan development that it's difficult or uncomfortable to cross some major streets and that opportunities are really few and far between. Your newly adopted comprehensive plan, that transportation chapter includes many policies that indicate you are committed to improving safety for people who walk in the city. And this revenue source, the TBD, can help you live up to that commitment. Please move forward with using an increased portion of the TBD for sidewalk maintenance and capital walking safety projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. We also had one written public comment. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council this evening? Seeing none, then we'll go on to our next agenda item, which is our 2025 carryover budget amendments.
Great. Good evening. My name is Chelsea Knight. I'm the Acting Financial Services Manager. Tonight we're going to discuss the 2025 carryover budget amendment. So first we're just going to talk about the process in general, and then we'll dive into some specifics related to this current request. So at the end of each fiscal year, it's typical for the city to have goods and services that were authorized, budgeted, and encumbered, but not fully expended prior to the fiscal year end. So the carryover process creates a mechanism for us to move those budget dollars into the new fiscal year. We monitor these requests very closely. They cannot result in an increase in actual budget amount, and they also cannot, it can't modify the account code that it was assigned to originally. All items included in the carryover amendment were already previously approved by the council in the prior fiscal year. And on top of that, any carryover amendments for the amendment itself that we're working through right now will be approved by council through an ordinance. So in order to qualify for a carryover, all the following requirements have to be met. It needs to be, it must constitute a valid and enforceable obligation. So this can be by way of a contract, a purchase order, or a similar binding commitment. It must be properly authorized and recorded in the city's financial system before the fiscal year closes. And the related goods or services cannot be fully received or completed by that fiscal year end. And lastly, there has to be sufficient fund balance. And to expand on that a little bit further, the carryover is limited to any remaining unspent budget. And so we look at that from a number of different ways, the most obvious being the project itself. But we also look at it from a full fund level. So there has to be enough fund balance or available cash to allow for the carryover from one year to the next. And then we also look at it from an account code level as well. So if a specific project has capacity, but the account code doesn't, then because of some other circumstance, then we wouldn't necessarily be able to allow for that carryover. So all of these verifications ensure accuracy and confirm that the resources are available. Common examples of eligible carryovers include construction projects, capital asset purchases, and some operating expenditures. In all three of those examples, the original item would have had to have been authorized in the prior year's adopted or amended budget, and also committed prior to fiscal year end. So those kind of perfectly help us transition into the current year requests, because a lot of these that I'm about to show you fall into one of those buckets. These are items that were authorized and committed in 2025, but were ultimately unspent, and so we're asking that budget to be moved forward into 2026. So this screen is specific to kind of governmental requests. These are just really high-level items. The final ordinance that we bring forward will have all of the requests regardless of dollar value. So on the slide, we can walk through these. The Human Services Grant Program, we're asking to move forward just under $298,000 to continue that program. The Regional Permanent Supportive Housing Project at $3 million. The Veterans Hub Accessibility Project at $372,000. The Police Station and Training Center, we're going to look to complete that project this year at $7.1 million. Midtown District Economic Development, that's $436,000. Parks Facility Security Camera Expansion at $274,000. Also looking to wrap up Greg Cuyo Park Phase 1A, and that's at $555,000. Longs Pond Dock Replacement, $256,000. Rainier Vista Park Improvements, $903,000. Bush Park Playground Equipment, $416,000, and then the rack improvements at just under $1.1 million. When we talk about amendments, oftentimes we're really focused on that expenditure side because that's what the activity actually is. But in the case of designated revenue streams, those also get carried forward too. So examples of that would be Rainier Vista Park and then Bush Park Playground. You'll remember those had grant dollars associated with them, and they also had contributions from community partners, so those revenue lines will also be carried forward into the budget, or in 26 budget.
I had just one quick question. So on the Human Services Grant,
Yeah.
that amount that's being carried over is something that we awarded last year?
So that program runs from August 1st to July 31st, so
Okay.
those $25 are moving into the new fiscal year just to carry out the rest of that program.
So that's in addition to whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
We do it for this year.
Okay. Next, we'll look at street and utility construction projects. So construction projects are just a really good example of carryovers because they typically span multiple years. Streets and utilities have the majority of those. So this slide shows total requests for those funds, but just know that there's several projects that build up into that total dollar value that are still in progress from one year to the next. So arterial streets, we're requesting $3.5 million, water 6.8, wastewater 5.3, and stormwater $338,000. So we don't need any decisions tonight. This is just to kind of show you the process and also give you some highlights of what to anticipate. At the March 17th council meeting, we're going to bring forward the actual full ordinance for you guys to review and adopt.
What's the total, just so that we're,
Yeah,
like,
I think I have that. Oh, you know what? Let me look at it.
yeah, it's like,
Big number.
it's looking over 20 right now, but
I'll pull it up.
5.2, it's got to be more.
Can't be
it's
that.
got.
There was one line
One
alone
line.
that was over
So-
6. So it can't be 5.2. It's gotta be more like,
I'm
it's gotta be
sorry,
in the
I'm looking at
neighborhood.
34.
34 million.
34.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
What on average have we been carrying over year to year? Do we know what? Is that, I mean, this seems a little bit high, but of course, their police station's still in there, so that makes sense, but
Yeah, we have some pretty big
I mean,
projects
It all
right now.
depends on
Yeah.
when during the year projects start. I mean, if they carry into the new year, it's already budgeted money, which really
And
just.
are we, I should know this question, I should know the answer to this. Are we amending the 2026 budget?
With
That's what,
this.
with this?
Yes,
We're actually amending the 2026 budget
to add these in.
to
Yep.
add these in?
Yep.
Okay.
And then, just for terms of process, it's going to be a little bit different, because every year we do the carryover amendments about this time. And then we also will brief council on amendments that are going to occur that usually gets adopted later in the year. This year, we'll do a spring budget amendment as well as a fall budget amendment, because we want to capture the water main replacement project that the council gave authorization to back in December, and officially amend the budget amendment, and also amend it to account for implementing the 2-year work programs tied to the 5-year economic development strategy. So we have this budget carryover amendment process. We'll come back in about a month or two with the budget amendment for the spring quarter, and then capture anything we need to capture in the fall.
It looks like last year's carryover was about 19 million, so this is pretty significant
Yeah.
compared to that one.
Could I make a comment? So I think it's important to recognize the timing that decisions are made relative to capital projects. So, you all approved the budget in December, right? But we're putting together our capital budgets like in May and June of the previous year. So we're forecasting out over 19 months. Some of those projects we haven't even started the design on yet. And we all know that unexpected things come along. So I just wanted to point out, how far in advance these costs are estimated. And that's the need for a program like this. Because, if delays come along for whatever unexpected reason, we're able to just carry over the budget amount from the previous year into the current year.
Appreciate that.
Say Virgil used to always say, the budget's good for a day. January 1st, by January 2nd, there's already going to be amendments.
Yeah. That's why it's so difficult to try to figure out what the true costs, right, are compared to revenue, because we always make a good estimate, and then there's always this huge budget carryover that happens anyway. And so it's just like, there's so many moving parts on this, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, and just to Scott's point and what you're saying, Mayor, again, depending on the year, we have capital projects going into design, but also under construction that may be longer construction periods. Police station, for an example, that's a $7 million carryover that because of some delays in materials. Capital funds and utility funds of that 34 million make up roughly 24 million. And so that's a driver, just to Scott Eggers' point.
Okay, any questions? Thank you. Our next agenda item is our community development block grant project recommendations.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Nice to see you again. My name is Michelle Chavez. I'm the Human Services Coordinator for the City of Lacey. And I'm here today to give you an update on our Community Development Block Grant Program and talk about some recommendations for moving forward with projects. So I'm going to start with a little bit of history, where we're at and how we got here. So we approved, going back to recap where it started from, the city of Lacey used to be part of a consortium with Thurston County and Tumwater. And Thurston County managed all of the administration of the Community Development Block Grant Program. And Lacey Council took an action to move to become our own Community Development Block Grant recipient. So instead of being part of that consortium, getting our dollars every 3 years, we would become our own recipient, and we would get it every year. So there's a large process that goes into that to transition from being part of the consortium to being an independent, what they call entitlement agency. So we began this process back in 2024. One of the requirements we had to do was we had to create a community participation plan, which includes all the different ways we're going to reach out to stakeholders and have public hearings and notify the community about how we intended to spend this money. So that started back in 2024. We did our community participation plan. We also had a 30-day review and comment period for the community to review. So once we had the plans drafted, we had a 30-day review and comment period. We brought it to the Human Services Commission for 2 public hearings before we published these. We took out 3 community ads. We had several council meetings, so both work session and a regular council meeting before we moved forward and approved these 2 plans. So the 2 documents that we needed to submit to the federal government were the annual action plan for 2025 and the consolidated plan for 2025 to 2027. Usually the con plans, they call them con plans, are 5 years, but because we left the consortium in the middle of that 5-year period, we had to do a condensed version. So we got those approved from the federal government. Happy to say that. Everything's approved. We got our signed grant agreement, and we have received our funds, so we have it in our account. $348,333 we have to spend this year. The program year runs, that's actually a typo, it's September to August. And so that's kind of where we are at today. So in that plan, so we had the con plan and we had the action plan. In the action plan, the council and the community approved to have our first couple years go towards public facilities and infrastructure. And part of the reason was we are just getting started and we're taking on a new kind of whole new program. And so in order to get our bearings, rather than contract out to subrecipients, we would do the first couple projects small and in-house and kind of get our bearings and then reevaluate when we come back to do our plans. So we'll need to do an action plan every single year, and then we'll need to start a new 5-year plan in 2027, that whole process. So this is just getting us started. So what does that action plan goal mean? It means these priorities are improvements to public facilities and infrastructure that support housing in low-income neighborhoods. So anything that we do that is an area benefit, we need to have 51% or more of that neighborhood to be low income. And then it could also be improvements to reduce the concentration of poverty or improve accessibility. That's one of the most popular projects to fund with these kind of dollars. The Community Development Block Grant dollars are very restrictive. How you can spend them and the reporting requirements and is very, very rigorous. And so a lot of times agencies will start with the accessibility projects to start because they're easy to get authorized. So in this plan, there was a table of potential projects. So there's 8 projects listed there. And also in your staff reports, there's links to the plan. So if you wanted to actually go through and read the action plan and the con plan and see all this, you can do that. But again, these are just 8 projects that we thought about we could potentially use some of the funds. Obviously, we have a small pot of money, so because we're a smaller community. And so these are projects that we could make it somewhat impact to. So Huntermer Park, ADA sidewalks, the senior center expansion, Brooks Park, public infrastructure like lighting, septic, Rainier Vista, the Lacey Museum and Cultural Center, and then college sidewalk and pedestrian improvements. So those were kind of the first 8 we put in our plan to look at potentially funding. So working with our Human Services Commission, so going back, the City Council, when they allocated their first Human Services Grant Program, which is separate from this pot, they started out with a Human Services Work Group who reviewed that and determined kind of how we were going to get that program started, and that Human Services Work Group evolved into a Human Services Commission, which is a permanent commission now. So they help us both with overseeing the Community Development Block Grant Program as well as the Human Services Grant Program, which is general funds. So we have talked to them a couple times, and we've brought, the plans together, gotten them approved, and the projects that we're looking at for this first year are the Lacey Senior Center and the Huntermore Park Accessibility Project. And since that, we met with the Human Services Commission, it's come to light that the Huntermore Park Accessibility Project will probably happen before the ground gets broken on the senior center parking lot accessibility. So we're going to actually recommend tonight to approve that as the primary. One of the things that HUD recommended was we always have a contingency project, so rather than just pick one, pick two in case something happens. Because as you know, with capital projects, a lot of times there's delays. So that gives us opportunity to meet some of our outcomes and kind of our timeliness deadlines that we have. And then $34,000 for the administration of the program. And I'll talk a little bit more about how those pots get split up.
I got a question.
Yes.
The $34,000 for the administration of the program, when we were operating under the county, the $34,000 obviously represents 10%, right? At least it looks like it does. But when we were operating under the county, that same number would have been 20%,
Yes.
right?
Correct.
Okay.
So one of these, with these funds, a majority of them have to be spent on capital projects. If we were to spend some of this money towards services, it would be a small portion, 15%. That's why having the Human Services Grant Program for the community is so great, because that complements this, because this is so restrictive. So you've got this wonderful program, $300,000 annually from the general fund, that can help create, fill the gaps. And again, because these dollars are so restrictive, having that grant money really makes it more accessible to our community partners, where they may not be able to meet all these federal requirements, but they can use the Human Services Grant Program for things that CDBG won't cover. And so, as Deputy Mayor said, we could use up to 20% for admin, but we're just starting out with 10%. And again, we think this would be a great asset to the city, because we can take some of the pressure off the general fund and use some of that to pay for the administration of the program. So the total would be $313,000 for the capital project and $34,839 for the administration. So Huntermore Park, you're all very familiar with our wonderful Huntermore Park. We have so many great events there. This project will help improve our civic engagement, really going to improve on the accessibility. I'll show you a couple pictures where you'll see the sidewalks are very deteriorated there. And then also improve health and wellness of our community. So you can see this is just a few pictures. I think there was about 6 pictures in your packet, but it has, shows where the different damaged portions of that sidewalk is. And again, even though it seems like a small pot of money, but you can make a big difference with even just a small pot. The other project we're looking at is the Virgil S. Clarkson Senior Center. And as you know, this center is busting at the seams. It is jumping every single day. It's packed. And so they're looking for more parking for their customers and expanding the accessibility for the older adults and increase safety for people with disabilities who are using the center.
Won't that parking lot cost considerably more than $300,000 though?
Yes, it will,
Yeah.
definitely. This would be part, and you can use your CDB dollars more than 1 year for one project. So if, say, you want to use it multiple years, you can use that too. And then this is what we'd be using CDBG admin dollars for. We would, again, reduce impact to the general fund, and then support for planning. All of those plans have to be written by someone, and we have to track our data, and we have to monitor. We have to make sure that we're reporting, so we have to report how everything we're doing to the federal government, especially what we're doing for public oversight. So everything has to show. You have to put ads in the paper, review and comment on your plans, make sure that it comes to commission and the council before anything can be spent. And if we were to modify any of those plans, that also would require a certain level of re-engagement if we were to change anything in the middle of the plan years. So again, this is the recommendation is these 2 projects. Probably Huntermore Park would be first, and then the $34,839 for administration. And I will open it up for questions. That concludes my presentation.
Questions?
So if we start a project, and we find something is an issue, we can't just switch projects midstream. We got to come up with the balance of whatever it would take to complete that project? Is that?
Well, we could change the plan, we can't change the plan to a certain degree, and that's in our community participation plan that we approved. In there, it says, how much are you changing the plan, and when do you have to go back out to public comment? Right now, we have those 8 potential projects that we are already in our plan, and we're looking at 2 that are already in the approved. So we could, if we were changing our plan significantly, we would have to go back out for public comment.
Okay.
I was just wondering, I know the Human Services Commission was kind of, a baby right when I was joining the council. So I was just wondering how the evolution has been over the past couple years with that committee.
It's been excellent. We have a great group. We have 7 commissioners, and we have a youth council participant. We're on our 2nd youth council participant. We've had a few vacancies, but we've been able to fill them pretty quickly. 1 or 2 people have stepped off, and we've got a full commission right now. So I couldn't be happier with the participation and the oversight, and they help us review those grant applications, and that is a lot of work. In addition, the con plan and the action plan are not short documents either to look through. There's a lot of data in there, so super helpful to have them take a first look before it gets to you, weed out any kind of the major concerns, and then when I get to this body, I'll have a better product.
I remember the conversations we were having around these at the beginning or over the first couple of years was, how do we implement this? How do they do, how do we come up with what we're doing? And those are some kind of interesting, complicated meetings that we had. So I'm really glad that you guys are improving the processes. I think it'll make our life a lot easier in the future too.
Well, I think this is a great project. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of new housing in that area and more to come. And so the use of that park is going to continue to grow. Obviously, those sidewalks within that area, need a lot of help. That whole park really needs to be reconstructed, and I know that we have some other grant money out there to help us with that. Do we have an actual a quote on what it will cost? I know we're going to put 300, all these dollars towards that, but do we have a?
For the sidewalk repair and replacement, we have a budget request in an estimate of 280. So the CDBG dollar allotment will be able to cover that cost. If there's any overruns, we'll have to figure out how to bridge that, but.
And what happens so we're putting to the sidewalks, what happens, if it does cost less and we have dollars left over, is it use it or lose it, or do we get to carry it over?
We get to carry it over.
Okay. Well, that's great.
I think these are 2 really great projects. I'd like to see them both go forward. When I think about the senior center, I think I read that we're looking at adding maybe 50 more parking slots. I don't know where those are going to be located, but regardless of wherever they are, I'd like us to also consider having some sort of a shuttle service across the parking lot for large events or special events, because I'm trying to envision what that how big that parking lot will be. People still have to, if they don't come on time or they don't get here before all of the slots near the building are taken, I'm concerned about people having to walk distances across the parking lot. So that is something to consider.
The new parking lot is actually going to go, I guess, is it north? What is that? East? I'm trying to figure out. East.
We're going to demolish the house next door to make room for the
You're
parking
looking at the
lot.
senior
It's
center to the
immediately to
left.
the east.
Yeah, and it's going to take quite a bit to expand that parking lot. I don't, have we even started design of that?
Very initial estimates. What now we're looking at trying to get, work on different grants and maybe a request with our federal delegation to get funding and dollars to go towards the expansion of that parking lot. So it'd be bringing different pots of money together to make it work. And I think what Councilman Turner is looking at too is even with that expansion, today it's a challenge with the amount of parking lot close to the front doors of the senior center And if individuals that have mobility issues or have to park clear on the
Right.
other side of the community center, it's a long walk. So trying to figure out a way to bridge that gap or reserve spaces so that there's accessibility close to the doors.
And I
that's
saw that
something-
this weekend, someone with a disability had to walk almost the entire
it
length.
gets
So yeah, it does happen.
So I don't know what that really looks like, but that's part of the thing we can take a look at in this process as we look at the expansion of the senior center and
mean, could-
how to solve that.
Could we add a golf cart type of a situation with the CDB, if we had leftover CDBG dollars that could be used for transportation? Would that qualify?
One of the challenges with the CDBG is they don't let you buy equipment.
Okay.
So again, it's like with the Human Services Grant Program, a lot more flexibility. You can buy vehicles, you can buy equipment, but they,
So ultimately, that's what we would need, is some sort of,
Well, the more expensive part of that, the golf cart's not a big expense. It's
It's the person.
it's having to
Yeah.
have someone running that golf cart,
Yeah.
right? The equipment's not a big deal. It's the
staff to do it.
staffing.
Although there is some, usually staffing there that could probably figure that out.
Yeah, and there may be a line they could call if they're in the area to request it or something, there's
I
ways
think
of
that'd
doing
be
it.
great.
It's worth the conversation and figure out and
Be
problem
great.
solve. Don't know what that solution ultimately will be, because as you say, there's multiple factors. If you know, cost of equipment or staff, personnel. But as we go look at this expansion, again, that's something that we can work through and problem solve in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're on board.
great,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you, Michelle.
So our next agenda item is our State of the Streets report.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. I'm Jamie Connor. I recently just started this position as project manager / pavement manager with the city. So I'm still learning the ropes, but I'm really excited to be here and working with you all. So the State of Streets report was originally prepared by our previous engineer, pavement manager Brian Petrin. Him and his family have moved back to Wisconsin, and we wish them the best in the next chapter of their life.
Welcome.
So as a
She's been with us for a while. She just got
Yeah, step
promoted.
into this role, though.
Yeah. So as a quick background for the State of Streets, this report is made every other year. All our public roads are visually inspected, meaning we go out and manually type all the pavement service defects. That data is punched into our pavement management system called Street Saver. And that data input, Street Saver will run analysis on funding needed and repairs. And the State of Streets report is an informative format that we provide for the council and our citizens on how our roads are performing and what funding we may need. So this is our current pavement conditions. Our current PCI network score is 84.6.
Wow.
Yes, pretty good. It's up from last year, too. And our network consists of 184.9 centerline miles, and of that, 96.8% is in very good or good condition, and only 3.2% in fair or poor condition. So this is our pavement conditions over the years. As you can see, it hovers between 83 and 84. So as we grow as a city and get more streets, that can bring it up or down. Annexations come in at their current condition, where new roads come in at 100. So again, it can bring it up or down, and it also means there's more roads to maintain in the future. So this is a map of our current PCI. As you can see, there's a lot of blue and a little red and yellow, which is what we like to see. It means we're doing great. This is a list of our streets annexed and the totals of 7.2 lane miles, and then our PCI that they came in at was 81.8. This is our map of our roadway projects that we had for the last 2 years. We do roadway maintenance with TBD to upkeep our roads in good shape, because it's cheaper to maintain roads than fix bad ones, but when we do have the funding, we do try to fix the bad roads. There are some outside factors, such as like different funding with like federal or utility projects. They're usually with utility that we do joint with TBD. The next few slides, we're going to go over the projects in a little more detail. So we had Yelm Highway, which was 2.33 lane miles. We did 3,930 tons of asphalt, and it had 2,080 tons of asphalt base. This included new striping. We also did citywide valve and manhole patching, and this was 1.35 million.
When does a new road get counted into the index? After it's been a year, after it's 6 months, is it, or upon completion, or how does that, or the next time we look at updating the index? I don't
All
know.
the roads are in the index immediately.
So,
As one access.
so the report's done every 2 years, and in that time period, anything that has been reconstructed or any new roads that come in get taken into account before that next report gets put out.
So College Street extension from to 15th is not in there yet, but it will
Correct.
be
As soon as it's completed.
Within the next 2 years.
Within the next 2 years.
in the next cycle.
It'll come in 100%. It's brand new.
Yeah.
And then we have some photos of Yelm Highway. The top one's the before, and then the bottom ones are like during construction and after. Our next project would be Pacific Homing Roundabout with Sharrow striping. We did 0.62 lane miles, and then we did 870 tons of asphalt. We added storm drainage, a new sidewalk, and this cost $483,000. And then there's also some photos. You can see the before, there's some construction. We have the shared lane striping in the middle, and then also striping of the roundabout in that corner. And then we have the 2023 crack seal that was completed in 2024. That was citywide. We did 92,325 linear feet, and then that cost was $167,000. And then there's some photos of the crack sealing done through the city. And then we have the golf club road water and wastewater improvements. It was 2.34 lane miles. We had 7,300 HMA, and then it was a utility project. So like I said before, it was, utilities was paid with utility, and then the roadway was paid with TBD, and that was 3.4 million. And then we had 8th Avenue, which was 0.23 lane miles. We did 410 tons of asphalt. We did storm drainage, and that was $228,000. You can see the existing before and then now what it looks like. And this is just the summary of those projects. It was roughly $12 million, 8.4 lane miles, and then we did 25,510 tons of asphalt. So with the program Street Saver, we run budget scenarios that spit out PCI based on a general degradation curve that updates itself with the data that we enter. So every road will degrade in a supposed way, but there's outside factors or like Mother Nature that we can't always account for. So that's why we go out and inspect these roads yearly and update those numbers to give a better idea what's going on. So the first scenario would be unfunded, no budget at all. The second scenario would be 3.5 million a year. And that's the estimate revenue we're currently getting for TBD, and that's assuming the full amount of TBD is going to street maintenance. For the last 3 to 4 years, we've been allocating about $5,000 to sidewalk maintenance. So assuming the 500, sorry, 500,000, my bad, to sidewalk. So assuming if TBD gets renewed and we continue the sidewalk program, we will update that to 3 million a year for the next report. And then the third scenario is to maintain our current PCI of 84. So this is our first scenario where we put absolute no money for the next 10 years. Our PCI will drop to 72, and our deferred maintenance would be 46.8 million, where our roads are falling into that pricey reconstruction rather than being able to do the preventative maintenance for it. So there's a lot of red and yellow populating on this map. Our second scenario, if we keep our current budget, our PCI would drop to 83, and our deferred maintenance would be 17.1 million, and this map has a lot more blue and not as much yellow or red as the previous. And then our last scenario, to maintain our PCI, we require about $4 million a year. to keep that 84, and the deferred maintenance will be 11.3. And between the last map and this map, there's more dark blue than the light blue, so it's in very good condition versus just good. And then what's next is for projects coming up, we have Willamette Drive, which the PCI is 66. The estimate cost is 3.3 million. We're working on the design currently and have that out construction next year. And then we have the College Street extension. We had 6 completed last year, and then we're gonna have College completed this year. So the extension itself was paid with federal grants, and the existing of 6 in College was paid with TBD.
When is that finally getting, it's pretty close. I keep driving by it and I keep, looking up it, and someday I'm gonna drive on that road. But it's getting, when do we think it's gonna be completed?
We need a week or two
Weather.
of dry weather.
And we're just waiting for weather for the final paving and striping, and then we'll be done. So we've been on hold for, a couple months now for
I want to be
weather.
there for the ribbon cutting.
It's,
It's been,
looking at the end of the month,
yeah, okay.
getting close, depending on weather.
How old is Willamette Drive?
What's that?
How old is Willamette Drive? Jeez.
Early 90s?
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, there's
Earlier
a
mid, yeah.
lot of cracks
Mid
in it.
90s, yeah.
I'm just curious, would you happen to know the average PCI across Thurston County?
I would not, I would have to look that up.
Can tell you that the rest of the cities are lower than ours,
Yeah,
for
that's a
sure,
fact.
considerably. And so are most cities across the state.
Yeah,
We're
most-
definitely at the top of that. heap.
Yeah, most cities you will see, like in the 70s, even, or 60s, so we're pretty good.
Yeah, I was just curious.
I did want to just make a comment about one of the projects, the Pacific Home Inn. I know when we did that project, there was a business owner that reached out because we basically shut their business down for a week. And I know it was not intentional, but just to be aware, they were told that they were going to have access, and then when it came out, and then we finally got it fixed, but it took a week for them to get their driveway back opened up so they could kind of maintain normal business. And so just be cognizant that we still don't want to make too big impact if we don't have to on the businesses when we do these.
Willamette Drive has a considerable amount of traffic on it.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and I know it's not gonna be too long before we're gonna have to start ripping up pieces and redoing it. Is that? or-
Yeah, so the project, we're gonna, it's from Hogan Bay to Borellis. So it's gonna be a complete reconstruction of it, because that's where it's at, and so brand new, and it'll hopefully be nice. Well, it will be nice, and it'll be a lot easier to, and then all that truck traffic, and it won't be touched for, I believe, 5 years once it's laid out.
So for this budget for Willamette Drive, would that be all the TBD money, or would that be coming in from different budgets as well? So that way we can spread that money throughout maintaining other roads and sidewalks throughout the city.
Unfortunately, due to the last engineer moving on to another job, we're a little bit behind. So this year, we're only going to be working on this project as far as roadway goes. We do have other projects that we're working on, such as starting the College and 7th project, roundabout, and a sidewalk project. But as far as TBD funds, it'll be this project in design and another sidewalk replacement project. And unfortunately, we just don't have due to the staff turnover, we didn't have time to do another project this year.
No problem.
What is the balance in our transportation benefit district? Do you know what we got in there?
I don't have that off the top of my head. I think it's around 4 or 5 million, but I can get back to you on what that exact number is.
Yeah,
We-
we've collected more than
Yeah.
we're putting out. And we do use other funds. And we're also, are pretty good about getting other things done while we're doing these projects as well. So we've been really, really smart about, doing these things.
Yeah, our budget this year for TBD was a little over 5 million, and we're not going to spend all of that, so.
I'd just like to comment, though, we don't always have a surplus. There have been years when Aubrey's actually gone and talked to Troy and say, we're probably going to pull this back so we don't overrun. So, yeah, there's not typically a reserve.
Our unencumbered balance is about 4 million in TBD.
About 4 million.
Awesome.
And
Thank
then,
you so much.
And then, in talking about combining funds and projects, and kind of a good example is that is College Street Extension. As Jamie mentioned, is you got the road project, you got utility infrastructure, funds are going into that, but then taking the opportunity to resurface the existing portion of College Street and 6th Avenue, make it one project.
Yeah, and that's why I was asking, because as we were talking about those other funds and putting them all together, that's why I was curious if there was all just TBD or if there was other funds coming into the
And I think part of the
Drive.
decision that goes into that, and Aubrey's team and their planning is going to Councilmember Dunning's point, is if you do year after year of continual projects, you get construction where you try to get as much as we can all at once, so we have minimal disruption to residents as well as businesses.
When were we gonna potentially get an update on the College and 7th Street roundabout? Do we have any timeline on that?
So we currently have out a request for qualifications to hire a consultant to start that, so.
Some final thoughts. Lacey streets continue to be in great condition. There's a large amount of residentials that are in good condition for their first preventative maintenance cycle, and if we continue our preventive maintenance, that will help lessen the PCI decline and reducing the roadway requiring expensive reconstruction. Questions?
Good job.
Awesome job.
Thanks. Talk about Transportation Benefit District. Here's a briefing on it.
I'm not moving away from Rick, I'm just getting a little closer to Aubrey because we're going to have to share the joystick here.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh, sure.
All right, so Aubrey and I are thrilled to be here. Martin is too. Jamie, thank you. Yeah. Hey, if you want to pitch for a great HR program, Leilani implemented the Infant at Work program. And so Jamie's daughter, Casey, has been here at work. You know, it's just up until they're 6 months old. And she's been phenomenal, and she's like uplifted everybody because she's always smiling. So if like somebody is not having a great day, all you do is you go find Casey and put a big smile on your face.
That's great.
Anyway.
Does that apply to puppies too? Can that be a thing?
Oh, Casey way tops puppies.
That's great.
So anyway, so Aubrey and I are going to tag team this presentation a little bit. So we're here to talk to you about the Transportation Benefit District renewal. Voters approved a 0.2 sales tax increase to fund the TBD in February 2017. And per RCW, that has a 10-year life on it, and then it needs to be renewed. So we're coming up on 2027, so that's what we're here to talk to you about.
Awesome.
So just a quick run down the agenda. There are two near-term decisions that we need from y'all. We don't need them tonight, but we'll touch on those. A little bit of what the purpose of a transportation benefit district is, a little bit on our Lacey TBD history. We need to discuss renewal election dates, and we also need to discuss transportation benefit district ballot language, whether it will stay the same as it was in 2017 or be modified. So these are the two near-term decisions, just the election date. Two basic options are the general election in November or the special election in February, which would come right on the 10-year anniversary. The other decision point will be the ballot language regarding the allowable work. In the 2017 ballot, it was limited to rehab, so pavement rehab, sidewalk repair. And, as Karen Mesmer brought up, and I know some of y'all are interested in possibly adding a sidewalk capital component. So we want to share some information to help you be able to make an informed decision on that, as well as, our opinion there. So what is a transportation benefit district? So it's a funding tool. And how it came about is cities have typically struggled to fund maintenance of their transportation system. And, as Councilmember Greenstein pointed out, we have one of the best pavement condition indexes in the state. Prior to the Transportation Benefit District, Lacey funded that with the general fund. But that just demonstrate, I mean, you drive on a lot of city streets, county roads, and, you know, very poor condition. It just speaks to the struggle to get funding to maintain roadways. So then also, you know, transportation maintenance, just so you're aware, is mostly funded by contribution from the gas tax, which is split. 2/3 goes to our transportation maintenance team, and 1/3 goes to the arterial street program. But then also a large amount of the funding for our transportation maintenance team in operations comes from the general fund, or actually specifically from utility tax. So the history, I know you can't see this, really read this slide, but what I wanted to point out is this was a staff report to council in September 2016 for the ballot resolution for the February vote. What I really wanted to point out there is you can see prior review. You see a whole bunch of references there. So there were 14 TBD meetings between 2010 and 2016, and the discussion points we're listing there, just considering a transportation benefit district, talking about the formation of the district, and then discussing the revenue vote. So the history, as I mentioned, Lacey used to fund the overlay program out of the general fund. And then as more and more competing needs came about, it was obvious that that was not going to be a sustainable funding mechanism. So then we started looking at what funding tools are out there, and the Transportation Benefit District is the main funding tool for this purpose that was created, you know, by the state and is defined in the RCWs. And it's not just limited to cities. Counties also, you know, can use these, but it's for local agencies. And so anyway, you know, we, you know, with the council, that looked at the formation of a transportation benefit district to use that tool. It's actually a two-part program. First, you have to form the district, which is councilmatic. Council does that. But then you have to select a funding tool. And there are different funding tools, like, you know, a vehicle fee, a vehicle tab is one of them. One of the options, a sales tax increase is one of the options. So council selected sales tax. Troy Wu provided information that showed for the average household that a sales tax increase was less impactful to the average household than vehicle fee increase, plus it generated almost 3 times as much revenue. So that decision was made. It went to the voters in February 14th, 2017, and, you know, here we are.
Overwhelmingly passed.
Yeah. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Hubbard.
Okay, so I just wanted to explain the picture on the left. This shows some of the sidewalk offsets that we're dealing with when we spend money on sidewalks with TBD. So we did a survey about, I think it's been about 2 years ago now, where we hired a firm to go around and survey all the offsets throughout the city, and there were over 18,000 locations in the city that had a sidewalk offset. And so when the TBD was first approved, although sidewalk maintenance was listed as one of the things that we would do, the problem has grown over the years, if you will, with the trees continuing to push up the sidewalks. And so about 3 or 4 years ago, we started spending about $500,000 a year on these sidewalks, and we're feeling we probably need to spend a little bit more than that. We're thinking probably more like, you know, $750,000 to a year to start trying to get caught up on all of those offsets. So these graphs here, the table on the left just shows you what we've earned each year since the TBD was formed. And just to note, the first year is lower because we didn't start collecting until July of 2017, so it's only half a year. And then the table on the right will show you that the average that we've earned over the last 3 years is about $3.9 million per year. I'm not going to go through this whole table, but this is just to kind of estimate to show you all the work that we've done with the TBD. since it was formed. We've done a variety of projects from overlays to reconstructions, dig outs, slurry seals, sidewalks, crack seal, and just shows kind of the total tons of asphalt we've put down, lane miles of roadway that we've rehabbed, and the total amount of money that we've spent since it was on there, which is almost $23 million. And this is just the same information, sort of in a different format, just kind of showing you all the work that we've accomplished since 2017. So I think Scott briefly mentioned, so in 2017, the ceiling for the sales tax and use tax for a TBD was 0.2%. So that's what was put out to the voters for approval. That was approved for, it's authorized for 10 years. Effective July 1st, 2022, there was a change, and they now allow a ceiling for the sales tax and use tax of 0.3%. And the governing board, which is yourselves, was given authority to impose a 0.1% tax. That's included in the 0.3, not in addition to it. So the councilmatic increase is the same. It may not exceed 10 years and can be renewed by you as well. So here's the first point that Scott discussed that we would like some discussion from you sometime in the near future on which election option we want to go with. So November 2026 would require us to have a council resolution in July, and February 2027 would require us to have a council resolution done by November. I have approximate costs there that were given to me by Thurston County, which can't be exact because I don't know at this time what other ballot measures there may be. So as that gets closer, we'll be able to provide a better estimate for that. Just some considerations for the general election. That will be a lower cost, but there will also be multiple ballot measures and initiatives and candidate races and et cetera going on. February election is going to be a higher cost, but that would align with our 10-year renewal cycle. The original was approved in February of 2017. It would allow for a more targeted, focused, standalone ballot measure, and that would allow staff more time for public outreach and completion of our 2026 projects. On the left here, this is just the wording of the 2017 ballot that we put out. So it very specifically was only for rehabilitation. No new construction was allowed under this ballot measure. The photos on the right were just to show you the recent work that we did on Yelm Highway for that rehab. And then this is the second item that we're going to ask for some discussion on, and that is, what do we want the ballot measure language to be? So we'd be either using the 2017 ballot language, which would limit work to repair and maintenance of existing city streets and sidewalks, or changing the language to also include an allowed use for constructing new sidewalks. And so just some of the considerations. So our current funding is about $4 million a year that we're getting, slightly under $4 million a year that we're getting from the TBD. And the current funding need to just maintain our roads at their existing condition, plus money to replace those, 18,000 sidewalk offsets, is about $4.75 million per year. So we currently, with the funds we're getting, don't quite meet the need that we have for maintaining what we already have. Ballot measures for renewals without changes show a higher success rate. Just looking at recent ones that we've seen with Tacoma and Tumwater. Approximate cost to construct a new sidewalk is about $2.5 million for about 1,000 feet of sidewalk. So that's not just the sidewalk, that's the cost for all the improvements that go with it. So storm, curb, gutter, lighting, paving, easements, et cetera. And so what I wanted to do is provide you just an example of what that could look like. And so we picked 22nd Avenue between the, where the sidewalks end at the College Street roundabout to Judd Street, and it's about 800 feet. And our cost estimate for this project was approximately $2 million. And so just to give you an example, this is a roadway cross-section for a major local residential street. And so 22nd Avenue currently is 30 feet from edge of pavement to edge of pavement. And so what we would, the required section for this road, if we brought it up to our required standards, would be 32-foot roadway, and then 11 feet for the sidewalk and planter strip. And so basically an additional 12 feet beyond what the edge of pavement is now on either side of the roadway. So this is just showing an aerial of what that would actually look like for the people who lived on that street. And this is all, what's shown in here is current city right-of-way. It's just areas that people often consider part of their front yard as actually the city right-of-way. But what you do have to note, let's see it, I can probably explain it better on this picture, is that even when we do those improvements right up to the edge of the right-of-way there, where that red line ends, you're not necessarily going to line perfectly up with all of those driveways and yards, and so there could be a lot of additional design or slope easements or temporary construction easements needed to try and match up those points with the driveway. So if you see, for example, the driveway on the right, looks like it's downhill from the road, we would have to figure out how to redo their driveway so that there wasn't just a drop off there, when we were done, so.
If I could,
Upgrade,
go ahead.
and also upgrading streetlights, depending on streetlight standards in that area as well.
Right, for example, that's not a city streetlight, that is a PSC power pole that light is on, so.
So just so I'm fully understanding what you're saying is if we let this project as an example, that is city right away on that 12 feet, and we wouldn't have to acquire that from the property owner, it's already ours?
Correct.
Okay.
The problem is that there could be some additional right-of-way or some work needed with individual homeowners to get those lines to match up. So, when we did the roadway, if the sidewalk is, or the driveway is going to be, 6 inches higher than what their driveway was before because we've moved that 12 feet further back, then we have to figure out how to work within what is their property
Making some
to correct
design
that.
decisions here, and we don't have to construct it like this. We'd be choosing to construct it like this. We could do a sidewalk on one side of the street that doesn't, at some point you have to make a decision. Should we do a sidewalk that's safe without all the bells and whistles, or no sidewalk at all? I mean,
So
you're offering,
well, what,
it's a Taj Mahal or nothing, and that's not
well,
necessarily the case.
I wouldn't say it's the Taj Mahal, it's the city standard that you all have adopted. And when you start deviating from that standard, that raises a lot of issues. Then the developers come in like, well, why are you requiring us to follow a standard that you yourselves don't even follow? So yeah,
But it's still a decision, and I think, I appreciate what you're doing here. I'm not sure if this is, I don't know how helpful this is to me.
What?
When I think of like a sidewalk areas, I'm thinking about, there's a sidewalk on one side, there's a 15-foot sidewalk that we're missing, there's sidewalk on the other. We should probably connect those two sidewalks, but we don't have any funds to do that. I'm not talking about redesigning the sidewalks on bringing brand new sidewalks into a place that never had sidewalks. Those are two different things.
Yeah, for small areas like that, we do actually do that. So one example of that was on the Homan Pacific Roundabout.
Yeah.
There was a small section of missing sidewalk, and we didn't use TBD funds for that, for just that little piece. We used arterial streets funds. And so if we're just talking about really small pieces like that, we would typically cover that
So
under arterial street funds.
could you back up to the first slide that just gives the overall? So the reason we picked this, or one more, picked this section is, we've heard, and like Karen Mesmer made the pitch earlier, we've heard that, and we know that people want to see these areas infilled, or even back to the aerial that shows the full length from Judd to the school. So the reason we picked this is that these are the priority areas, so this is a route to school. The cross-section, the design standard is the standard for this roadway. So what we want to do is paint the picture. A lot of people think that, that the cost of installing sidewalks is not very expensive. All you're doing is pouring some concrete. You're doing a whole lot more than pouring concrete. And so we just wanted to demonstrate that like this, which would be a priority sidewalk project, how much it costs. And we want, and as we started out saying here about the TBD, the whole purpose for this initially was that we needed to replace a general funding mechanism for financing our pavement rehabilitation, which is just asset management. We're trying to keep the cost of maintaining our infrastructure as low as possible for our taxpayers. And the way to do that is to maintain it in these improved conditions, so that we have a slide at the end which will show that it would cost about 4 times as much, if you let the road deteriorate and you have to replace the whole road as opposed to just a grind overlay. And we're also going to show how, how adding, say, $2 million a year, pulling $2 million a year out of the Transportation Benefit District to build new sidewalks, how much that impacts the pavement condition. And
I wouldn't recommend pulling $2 million out of our Transportation Benefit District. I would advocate for pulling some dollars out to connect key areas that are currently missing, unless you can come up with another way to pay for it. And I don't know of any other way to pay for it.
That's the council's decision. We just wanted to give you all the information.
But
So,
keep
and I do want to express that this is a realistic, this isn't the Taj Mahal. This really is a realistic thing. We can't just plop a sidewalk down. There's a lot of grading. We have to meet ADA requirements. This is going to trigger storm requirements. And so it's not, even if we, for example, decided, okay, we're going to go against our standard and we're not going to plant any trees and, we're not going to do any upgrades to the lighting, well, there still could be light poles that are in the way, maybe of where a sidewalk is that may need to be moved. And the majority of this expense and this work isn't in, whether or not we plant a tree there or not. So a lot of that work, even if council made a decision that we're not going to follow our own standard, there's still, most of this expense here is still going to be here, so.
I think I was just trying to illustrate that the $2.5 million for 1,000 feet does not include any right-of-way acquisition. This is just.
Correct. That assumes that we will not need any right-of-way acquisition, that we could build that. And it does assume that, part of the design is that, if we had to build a sidewalk there would be a lot of coordination and design and regrading needed to match that up along the street. And this is just one example that we're trying to give you, and it really depends on what the topography is of the neighborhood and all of that too.
So, Councilmember Reese.
I'm sure we're going to get to it at the end anyway, but my personal, and I've been looking at this for quite a while, my preference is to go exactly as we have it now currently anyway. So I would not support the idea of taking money out of the Transportation Benefit Fund in order to add additional sidewalks. We'll get into that discussion later, I'm sure. But that's where I am on it.
And there are some grant opportunities for pathways to school and those critical spaces, and kind of like what happened on Mullen Road, where we actually shared that work with the county, I believe, in that case. But it turned out really good. But I know that it was more grant dollars than just us pulling from TBD funds.
Yeah, I don't know.
But let's keep going. This is information only at this
Councilmember
point.
See, you had a.
I was just going to say, having walked those streets, talked to the families along those roads this last summer, that's one of their biggest concerns right now is their kids walking down the street to get to their school and doing it safely. So I'm glad that this was an example that was used today, because that's a real fear, that's a real issue that are facing the families that live in that area, is being able to get their kids to school safely. And like, just having that chunk of road that does not have a sidewalk there is a really big issue. And I really do support using this money to build those sidewalks, so that way our kids can get to school safely. It's a big issue.
Yeah, another reason we chose this section, and it's been a long time since we did this, but this was a project that was discussed with the neighborhood. Do you know how long ago that was?
Yeah, you want to speak to that?
I could. Go on to the other couple ahead, we'll just review. Back in the 1988 bond issue.
Mark's been around a while.
He's old.
I am really old. A sidewalk was proposed for this project. It was included in it. And what happened was when we went to the property owners to install the sidewalk, they were really upset about it. They did not want those people walking in front of their house. So what we did back then is we did an overlay, and we had an 8-foot walking path on the north side of the street. And what happened is that looked like the perfect place for a parking. So everybody was parking there. The police were always out there giving tickets. So when we overlaid it, and that really hurts my feelings when we start overlaying things I did when I was younger. We split it up and put 4 foot on each side of it to get a shoulder to walk down, is what we tried to do. So we've tried this before. I know the ones that I remember was 22nd, 14th Avenue, and Yelm Highway were the 3 that the neighbors really did not want the sidewalk.
And I think it's just that, someone doesn't want, a lot of people don't want the idea of 12 feet. I mean, if you see that one on the left there, I mean, they're parking right there.
But in general, won't sidewalks improve property value?
In theory, they could, yeah.
In theory, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
let's keep going through here, and we have some discussion.
Oops. Okay, so again, the total left is showing approximately the average of what we've earned over the last 3 years. So what we were just trying to show here is if you did a typical, if you were going to do one sidewalk project a year, this would mean probably, instead of spending $4 million all on maintenance, that you would spend maybe $2 million on a sidewalk capital project, and probably still $750 on the sidewalk rehab, and then $1.25 million on our pavement rehab. And so what this chart is here, we just took those numbers and put them into our program that runs our PCIs, just to show what the difference would be. So spending $4 million a year on our streets, that's what's needed to basically maintain approximately the same PCI we have now, is the model on the left. The one in the middle would be if we reduce that to $3.25 million a year, so we can spend $750,000 on sidewalk repairs. So that one would bring our PCI down to about 82 by 2034, and we'd have about $15 million in deferred maintenance, versus if we were spending about $1.25 million a year, by 2034, our PCI would be at 77, and we'd be to about $33 million in deferred maintenance. And again, this is a program that's estimating over a long period of time, so these numbers aren't going to be exact, but it gives you just a rough idea of what those differences could be.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yep.
Could we build the flexibility into this to, for example, where she was just talking about the amount spent on sidewalks versus rehab and repairs, flip it so that one year we place more emphasis on sidewalks and the next year we place more emphasis on street repairs? And just kind of go into an every other year cycle?
It's maybe approximately what we do. So for example, we didn't do a sidewalk project for 2 years in a row. So then this last year, we did a $1.5 million sidewalk project instead of a $500,000 sidewalk project. So when I say that's how much we're spending, it's sort of like a yearly average, but depending on staff resources, that might kind of fluctuate from one year to the next on what the exact dollar amount is that we're spending.
Okay.
I guess a comment, because I've lived this dream before, is that when you get behind, you can't catch up. You'll never catch up. You can't afford to catch up. So, that previous slide that Aubrey showed, that showed deferred maintenance increasing up to 33 million. Yeah, you can't afford to regain that, and you start slipping down that, down that path. And there again, this is all about asset management and trying to maintain a system at the lowest cost to our taxpayers.
Yep.
So just these photos here are just the examples of different types of maintenance. The photo on the left is Meridian. We did a complete roadway reconstruction there. That's where we're taking out all the asphalts and sometimes some of the top base as well and completely rebuilding that. The photo on the top right is an example of an overlay where we're just grinding off the surface of a roadway that might be, 6 inches thick. We're just grinding off the top 2 or 3 inches and replacing that. And then the photo on the bottom is an example of a slurry seal that's placed over an existing roadway to help maintain the lifespan. And then the table I provided here is just to show you an example of what some of the treatments cost compared to total reconstruction. So if you see from top to bottom, slurry seal or a grind and overlay are, much cheaper. You start getting up into having to do a total roadway reconstruction, and you're spending, over $100 a square yard, and you're, can be up to half of that sometimes with these other treatments. And so this is just the true impact of deferred maintenance. This is what deferred maintenance means, is that we're letting our roads go to failure and then having to pay for a much larger project to totally reconstruct the road. So again, this is just the two discussions and decision points. The most important decision point is the election date, and because that'll drive, when we need to have a resolution back to you. And then, after that, the language that you're looking for. So if there's additional information that you need to make a decision, I can come back to council in April, and then we'll need decisions by that time. But happy if you guys are wanting to discuss and make any of those decisions tonight, that would be great. So
I think we will need to come back in April to talk about this more on the timing and maybe some of this other language. There's a couple unknowns out there. One of the big unknowns is that the Lacey Fire District 3 is also possibly looking to go out for a major bond issue.
What are they looking at?
Well, that's the question. That's
Okay.
that's exactly right. And so we are in the very, very early discussions about that. They haven't, I don't think, quite made up their mind. They're also sort of trying to figure that out. And they're also looking at what the number is going to be. I think hopefully most of this council might be aware of, they did purchase a major piece of property sort of over off of Britton Parkway.
Gateway Boulevard, Britton Parkway.
Britton Parkway, to do a new maintenance center and training facility over there. They're sort of on been working to see what that number is going to be, plus maybe a new fire truck and some other things. But they've also talked about possibly going out in November. I don't think we should be going out at the same time they're going out. But I also don't know if they're going to be ready by November either. So again, we need to have some strategic conversations with our partner there, and try to figure out what's the best timing. We kind of have gone back and forth on this as well. Do we do it in November, especially this election cycle? Well, yes, it might be cheaper, but man, there's gonna be a lot of stuff on it. Or do we do what we did last time and do a special election in February? I'm not sure, but I think we need to have a little more clarity on which way the fire district's gonna go and their timing before we sort of make that decision.
I think there'll be a lot of other things besides the fire district that are gonna be going out for money too. So I mean, I think there's gonna be, whether we go November or February, I think it's unlikely we'll be alone, even in February. I mean, because fire district's just one of many that are gonna be looking for more money for different things. I mean, I don't have a hard stance one way or the other at this point, but I mean, I lean toward November. Just because I like the idea of it being on a general election. I think there's some disadvantages, clearly, but there's also some advantages. I mean, it's hard to say which is a better option. I do think that in the current environment, I think we stand a far better chance of passing it more easily with using the same language as last time. I think adding anything new definitely detracts and makes it a harder sell and a much harder pitch to the public, because now you're looking for money for different things. We have a really good story to tell with what's done over the last 10 years that we've maintained. I mean, you looked at the numbers, we've maintained our roads at the same level, basically. They've been in that 83, 84 range for that entire time. And I think it becomes difficult to tell the public that we can do that and add new sidewalk using that same money, because we can't, right? The numbers are clear that the roads will deteriorate if more of that money's going to new sidewalk, as opposed to looking for other funding sources for new sidewalk.
Well,
That's just where I am.
I don't think there is any other funding sources for new sidewalks. We've been looking for funding for new sidewalks for the
Then they may-
17 years I've,
Then they may have to wait, because I
right.
just don't see this being a good
So,
source,
yeah,
because there just isn't enough money there.
Yeah, I'm not 100% convinced. This is our transportation benefit district. This is not our road benefit district.
Well, we do sidewalks
I-
also, and we're talking about increasing. the amount.
We're doing, yeah.
Well, we're talking about increasing the amount, but again, just like the roads, it's not new roads.
Sure.
It's maintenance of roads. It's maintenance of I mean, the way we explained this to the public, you and I did a lot of that. We went out, and we did a lot of public talking on this one.
Did.
And a lot of it had to do with the fact of how much less expensive it is to maintain infrastructure than it is to rebuild or replace infrastructure down the road. So,
We've done a great job, there's no doubt about it.
and that's my thing, is if we continue to use it to maintain our infrastructure, I think that's just a much easier explanation to the public, and it makes more sense to the public. And
I also fought really hard to make sure sidewalks were in there the first time, though, because that
And they are.
was important, and we've gotten
Agreed.
a lot of praise for making sure that we have maintained our
Oh,
sidewalks.
totally agree, for maintaining them.
Rick?
Councilman Cox,
Oh, Councilmember Cox?
and then Councilman Dunn has a.
You know, it's been so long, I forgot my question, sorry. I'll come back.
That's all right. Councilmember?
Yeah, I'll a little bit echo what Lenny was saying. I am concerned with the best possible outcome, not the best possible option. And obviously with the way a lot of bills have been, or a lot of like the MPD, how these things are going, it's like I am vastly more concerned with making sure we have the best chance of getting this passed, because not getting it passed is way more damaging than benefiting whatever, additions we put on. And so if there is a much better chance, or even if it's a 25% better chance of getting it passed, that, I'm not opposed to listening to more, because I like the idea of being able to do more with it. But currently, I just want to get, this would be really rough to lose, and that scares me for sure.
I absolutely agree. I think number one priority is getting it passed. I think what's difficult is that sidewalks are very, very popular. And we have had missing segments in our community for a long time that have been missing for going back to the 1980s. I mean, and it's, if we would have just done it back then, it would have been a lot less expensive than waiting until now. And I don't see how, how we're ever going to get to it unless we start putting a little bit aside. I'm not saying, it'd be nice to just be able to have the option to put the possibility of putting something aside, but let's make the best possible decisions year on and year out. That's what's difficult. And when you put the language in there saying it's only for this, you can't ever possibly do X, then you're sort of limiting yourself from some possibilities that could exist, matching up this money with other grant money, maybe using part of this to be the match on a grant. I mean, it's all difficult decisions because I see it as all one transportation network that we're trying to maintain and improve, in some cases. And that does include, in my opinion, missing sections of sidewalks, so. Councilmember Cox, you have your hand back up?
I do, yes. Do we know yet with Fire District 3's ballot measure whether it would be a property tax or a sales tax?
It's going to be a property tax. It has to be a property tax.
That's what I thought. And ours is sales tax.
This was renewing a sales tax, yeah.
Right. So I think we've seen more inclination for these kinds of things based on sales tax get passed than property tax. Witness what just happened with our metro parks thing. But yeah, I think we should coordinate with them and try to have a meeting of the minds about how we can help each other out on this.
I agree. Ryan, do you have anything before I go back to Nick? No, I was okay.
I was just gonna add one more point on what I was saying. Is one thing I completely trust our city staff to spend the dollars where they're supposed to be, and so it all comes down to, can we get, in my eyes, the best possible language, if we do decide to add new, so that it's not coming off as a new tax to people. I think that scares people, because I know that we will use the money for the best possible. It already shows it in our streets. So we know we're gonna use this money for the best possible options. How do we make sure the public understands that? That's where my worries are, so.
Just real quick.
Go ahead.
So I'm not afraid of, yes, we want to coordinate with Fire District. But I'm not afraid of doing this in November, to be honest, because it's a continuation. It's not like
new tax.
It's not a new tax. And so we're just continuing something that we've already got going. I am afraid that when we get to the conversation about the amount, I'm not sure I can support adding an extra 10 basis points, even though I see the numbers. I've calculated the numbers. I know what a huge benefit that would be.
If you're saying instead of going back out 2%, you going back out at 0.3?
Yeah, that's.
I don't think we were looking at that even.
I know, but it's going to come up.
You could-
Let's
you
be
could do it.
honest.
Could do it.
It's going to come up.
There is an option. There's
Yeah.
also actually come back later and do that. We just put out the options for the current proposal as a renewal, looking at an additional option maybe. If the council wants to go talk about that, we can definitely bring that back and bring it.
Could you do a half? Could you go up for 0.25? Or does it have to be full?
It doesn't have to be full.
It doesn't have to be. Okay. It could be 0.25.
And then the last thing.
It's up
Problem
to.
is that then we're
I
talking a
don't-
new tax,
I know.
not a not a continuation. That's
Yep.
a much harder.
Is the
And this
point
is
one
a
a
whole different
councilmatic
ballgame.
though? I thought it said it
Yeah,
was
it can be,
councilmatic.
or if you have the opportunity, it's always good to go out to the voters, but that's
Yeah.
some discretion too. And I think here in the council conversation, there is a lot to digest here in the presentation. I want to thank Scott, Aubrey, and Martin for the presentation, bringing all this information, because I think it's well worth for the council to be aware of. But we can also, as Aubrey mentioned, we need to make some decisions by April, and so we can bring this back for a work session in early April to continue the conversation, take information from this, pull back some more information for council, and have some more conversations. I know Scott has some stuff.
Well, I wasn't done yet, though.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So just so everybody knows the numbers, if we were to go to 3%, that would be about 5.786. as opposed to the 3.8 that we're currently at. So I see how that could be enticing.
There's the sidewalk money.
I just, yeah, and I don't think it would be a good sell right now. But lastly, I am in favor of, I like what you guys are saying, like our greatest chance of success is that we use the same language that we used last time. But the only problem I have with that is that the same language we used last time tells these people who don't have sidewalks that they're not going to get any sidewalks, right, out of this program. So I am in favor of pavement rehab, sidewalk repair, and new sidewalk. A lot of times you say sidewalk capital, maybe people don't understand what you're talking about. But just so that the people understand who don't have sidewalks, that, they're potentially eligible for some sidewalks as well, because prior to this, it was just repair.
Well, and I think that's part of the information that we can come back with. We used a good example in 22nd that's Aubrey and Scott walked through, but we could also look at what are those segments out there. What do they really look like? Are there gaps, or are they long stretches? And that's the dynamic we need to look at. But
That's where I'm saying, we have a bicycle and pedestrian plan that has already mapped all this out, tells you where the key missing segments are. We haven't really, no one's on this council's looked through that pedestrian and bicycle plan.
Except for when I was on TRPC.
Well, yeah, but.
Can we hear from Scott?
I know Scott has been when the
His arm's getting tired.
So, yeah, going back to the sidewalk thing. So obviously, this vote passed without a mechanism for new sidewalks in 2017. You look at the number of people that have sidewalks in front of their houses, and I can tell you in 2017, I didn't have any vertical offsets in the sidewalk in front of my house. Now I have multiple. So you have a lot more voters that have that 18,000 vertical offsets in front of their houses that have that concern that weren't concerned in 2017, because the magnitude of the offsets wasn't the same back then. So, I think in terms of, looking at the outcome, what gives us the best outcome, more voters are interested in potentially applying a little more money to sidewalk rehab than they are to filling in gaps of existing sidewalks. That obviously didn't turn the vote in 2017. And then also being aware of the voter blocks from 2017 and where we were successful and where we weren't. That also,
That's
those
why,
people have sidewalks.
ideally, we don't know the answer to that. Our population has changed so much in 10 years that it's really hard to say. That's why, on the other hand, I do feel like there needs to be some, no matter what, we need to start on the public outreach side. We need to go out there and start talking about this and start getting some feedback and say, hey, public, when we're talking to you, we're coming up with this issue. Do we set some money aside to try to do some key cut sidewalk expansion, or do we just do it as is? It'd be nice to at least start talking to the public about that and getting some feedback. But we need to start doing that really quick. I think we need to do that no matter what. But we don't have a lot of time before we have to make a decision on what the language is going to be. But no matter what, I think we need to come back with some more information.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, you had
No,
this
no,
over.
no, no, no.
Go ahead.
Oh, that's a communication.
I've already spoken. You can go.
Go ahead. You
I was
guys,
just gonna say, I'm in total agreement with that we definitely need to get out there and talk to people. I know when we were knocking on doors last year, one of the reasons people talked about not voting for the MPD was because I think they didn't have enough information, and I heard several people say, you want to improve the parks? Well, I don't have a sidewalk. So I think it's important to get out there and talk to people, but use a variety of methods to do it, not just having people come to us or having surveys. The other thing that I want to add is that I am still taking in a lot of information right now, and so I would definitely like to talk about this some more before we do anything else.
this is information only at this point. I think we can't quite make any decisions right now, right?
I was just going to say that I hadn't even considered including that extra 0.1%.
Up to 0.1%, yeah.
To that tax. I just think that if that's an option for us to come back and do later, once we have this passed just for the first part, that might be something to look at as part of like an amendment. But I also am not 100% sure about how this process fully works, but that is definitely something to continue to talk about as we keep like discussing and building out this plan.
Okay, well, obviously, we'll have some more discussion. We'll come back in April. We're going to reach out to the fire district to try to get some more information and work with them, and we'll come back and chat some more about all this.
Is there some additional information that you're requesting me to bring back in April to help you make these decisions, or?
I got
Yeah.
a list here now, we can sit down and talk about and debrief
And we'll chat
Yeah.
some more, and we'll get it to you.
Especially on the timing, that's one of the, I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah,
a really
once
big.
the timing is determined, that will tell us how much time. So for example, if you picked a later election, we'd obviously have more time to figure out what the language was going to be, on the ballot, for example. So I believe for the November election, the resolution is due in July. So that's why the April deadline to get decisions made, so we have time to write that ballot and get it back to you.
Again, come back on that conversation. Come back to that conversation is talking about what type of outreach or feedback first. There's a communication strategy within. If you're looking to get a sense of what people are wanting to see, that's a different thing we need to try and talk through as well.
Has the fire district said anything about when they'll make a decision?
They,
Because if we need a decision by April, I'm assuming they probably do as well. I mean, their timing's the
Yes.
same for when they need to have their resolution.
correct, and I have a meeting with the fire district this week, Friday, and see if we can get some more information on what their plan is.
Yeah, that'll be important to know.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, next up, we have council reports. Report?
I have no report.
No.
I have one.
Okay, we'll go Councilmember Cox.
Alrighty. Get the right one here. Inner City Transit Authority met on March 4th. We have a new board member, Councilmember Eileen Swartout from Tumwater. She is replacing Kelly Von Holtz, who has been transferred to another board. And so we're looking forward. I hate to see Kelly leave, but looking forward to Eileen joining the board. We authorized Emily Bergkamp, the general manager, to execute a contract amendment with the law firm of Lyman, Daniel, Kammerer, and Bogdanovich to renew our legal services. No change in rate, but they did add a new junior associate. We heard an update on the legislative session. IT has created a new position. It actually replaced the position of Director of Strategic Programs. This is called Chief of Staff. And this job, I think, will touch on more departments than the former job did, and allow for a little bit more efficient administration. And on a fun note, the Olympia Family Theater is putting on a production called Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. And the driver in the show will look just like an intercity transit operator, including wearing one of their uniforms. And the little mini go-kart bus that we have is going to be out in the lobby so that people can take pictures of that. They're going to be conducting a number of information and outreach tabling events to share information about the May 3rd system-wide route design change. The first one is on the 12th, March 12th, from 9:30 to 11:30 at the Olympia Transit Center. At the Lacey Transit Center, it'll be March 18th from 9 to 11. And there's one at the Olympia Senior Center on March 20th from 9 to 11:30. And on March 21st at Capitol Mall from 11 to 1. There'll be more opportunities in April as well, but I mean, this is a big overhaul of the transit system, and so they're planning a big outreach effort. And let's see. One more thing I wanted to mention. Sorry, I'm on pain meds.
That's all right.
Isn't the best.
That's all right. If you, you can report on it next time if you.
I have it
Okay.
here, I just had to flip through my notes. We heard about a bus operator named Mona Lentz who saw a young child, approximately 4 to 5 years old, walking alone on 22nd Avenue, about a quarter mile from Lacey Elementary. And a man flagged down the bus and told the driver that the child was alone and unresponsive to his attempts to help her. So the driver secured the bus, tried to coax the child, who continued walking in the roadway as oncoming traffic came around the parked bus. So she ran after the child and brought her back to the bus and safely secured her just before law enforcement arrived. And she then called dispatch after the event as she prioritized the child's safety first. So just another amazing story about the caliber of intercity transit drivers. And that's my report.
Great, thank you. Any other council reports?
I do not have a report.
I do not have a report.
I have a quick one.
Great.
SWAC met last week, was basically the first one for the year, so we just did the chair and vice chair elections. Emily Klaus is the new chair, and Chad Sutter is going to remain as the vice chair. I think the only real update from that is that the solid waste manager for Thurston County is also retiring, and so they're looking for a new one right now. And then tomorrow is Orca, and we'll be talking about asbestos demolition and registration fees. And so that is, you'll hear more about that next week.
Great, thank you. Well, and tomorrow morning, I have Transportation Policy Board. It's an in-person meeting bright and early, so that's what I'll be doing. But other than that, we have reached the end of our agenda. So without objection, I will call this meeting adjourned. And as always, keep it classy, Lacey.